Good morning. Welcome and thank you for joining us virtually for today's Wildflower program. If that's what you were intending to tune into, you made it to the right place. I'm Ranger Elena and I work here at Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge, and I will be the moderator for today's program. This morning, we'll start off with some housekeeping, move on to a brief message from the Friends of Sherburne, a nonprofit that both supports and partners with the refuge. And then we'll move on to the program itself, where naturalist Jenny will highlight what's currently blooming and where you can spot it on the wildlife drive. So for housekeeping, let me get back. So for housekeeping, this program, like our previous Facebook Live programs, will be recorded and you'll be able to watch it, find it on the videos tab under the Friends Facebook page. As well, we encourage questions this morning. While we can't be face-to-face during this time frame, questions and answers through the comments are about as close as we can get to an interactive program. So if you can help us out with that, we'd definitely appreciate that. We'll try to answer your questions both throughout the program and at the end in a question and answer format. If we happen to run out of time and don't get to your question, keep an eye out. We will follow up in the comment section shortly after the program. So to get us started, if you want to let us know where you're watching from. And while we wait to hear from you, I'm going to turn it over to Sue Hicks, a member of the Friends of Sherburne, who's going to give us a brief message about the Friends and a new opportunity that they're offering. So Sue, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Ranger Elena, and thanks to everyone watching from home. Yes, the Friends of Sherburne are a major partner of the refuge. We do a lot to support the refuge and have been doing this since 1993. Some of our major areas of support are nature education. This year it's a little different because we can't have kids out at the refuge, but we're doing other things to assist teachers and to bring nature into the classroom. You'll see in the slide photos of some of our student visits. Another major area of help that we provide is with events like the Wildlife Festival that we enable the refuge to offer to the public free of charge. We hope the Wildlife Festival will be back next year. It would have been this Saturday. So the Friends, as Ranger Elena said, are a nonprofit organization. So that means we have to do things to raise money. And one of those things is now being offered through our Eagle's Nest Nature Store. The store itself is not open, but we offer naturalist backpacks for kids that you can order by email and pick up curbside at the Learning Center. Now, when we say kids, we mean kids of all ages, because frankly, these kits look pretty fun to me too. You can see some of the cool contents like colored pencils and nature journals and animal track books and bug nets and magnifying glasses and bug containers. Now, these cost $30 plus tax, but if you're a Friends member, you get 10% off. So how do I become a Friends member, you ask? See the explorersherburne.org address at the bottom of the screen. That's our website. You can join online for as little as $20 a year, and you can get $10 off your naturalist backpack. Plus, if you check our Facebook page, now we're also offering t-shirts and hoodies and other cool things available to order for curbside pickup. So we hope that you'll enjoy the program. And if you're willing to or interested in supporting the Friends of Sherburne, we'd certainly appreciate your support. Thanks a lot and enjoy the show.
Thanks, Sue. I really appreciate that. It's always good to hear from her. So as for tuning in, I am presenting here at the Oak Savannah Learning Center at the Refuge in Zimmerman, and it looks like folks are tuning in from all over Minnesota, and so far I think our farthest is Wisconsin. We have folks from St. Cloud, Anoka, Ramsey, Hutchinson, Glencoe, Osseo, just right down the neighborhood in Zimmerman, and as well someone out of Polk County in Wisconsin. So thank you all for joining us. I'll turn it over to Jenny now so we can get started with the Fall Wildflower program, which you all came here for. So Jenny, take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Ranger Elena. Yep, my name is Naturalist Jenny. I'm a part-time contractor for the Friends of Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. Thanks so much for attending the program. One thing I will say quick before we start, all the pictures that you see in this presentation were taken on Sunday. So the flowers in there should still be blooming and the grasses should still be there if you want to visit the refuge in the next, maybe this coming weekend. So the first thing, and we'll see, get the screen popped up here, there might be a little bit of a lag, and that's all right. So the first thing we want to talk about is some general information about some of the plants that I will be talking about today. So when it comes to wildflowers and grasses, there's actually a huge variety of them on the refuge. There's places that are wet, there's places that are dry, there's stuff in between. We have full shade to full sun. So there's a huge variety of plants you can see. And these plants are seasonal. The cool thing about prairies and oak savannas is that the wildflowers and grasses change throughout the season. So you're going to have different flowers in the spring, into the summer, and over into the fall. And sometimes, like the grasses, will persist into the winter time as well. And these flowers tend to only bloom for maybe a couple weeks up to a month. So you kind of want to get out soon and see what we have. And I know it's kind of weird, this is a wildflower program, we talk about grasses, but I will tell a little bit about the differences here. Wildflowers in particular, if you notice this goldenrod species, they're very showy. They're usually bright, they have big petals, and that's because they're pollinated by insects. So they need those insects to be able to see where they are so that the plants then can get pollinated, make seeds, and make more plants for next year. Grasses, I don't know if you knew, but grasses actually do flower. The flowers are much smaller than wildflowers, and that is because they are wind pollinated. So they don't need to have any pollinators see them to come and get them because the wind carries them, which is super cool. Grasses in general, just so you know, for me, they're tough to identify if they don't have like their flower heads or their seed heads going. Luckily in the fall, a lot of the grasses have those seed heads, so they're pretty easy to identify. And they're kind of like the quintessential base of a prairie. If you've ever heard of like a short grass prairie or a tall grass prairie, they're naming that based on the grasses that grow there. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And if Elaine, you want to go on to the next slide, I wanted to give you a couple tips and tricks so that you can see more on the wildlife drive. A big one would be to drive slow. Some of these flowers can be kind of hidden in the grasses. So the slower you drive, the more you will see. And also at this time of year, we often have reptiles such as snakes and turtles on the road warming themselves. So it's a good idea to drive slow so you can see them and avoid them on the drive. Please also, if you could, be mindful of other drivers. So if you see a spot you want to see some flowers at, just pull to the side so that another car can go around you. They might have a different spot on the wildlife drive in mind to visit. And the best times to see a lot of these flowers would be kind of in the morning, maybe between 9 a.m. and noon. And on a sunny day, it's the easiest to see them. Some of the wildflowers, the grass is not necessarily, but the wildflowers will close up on a cloudy day or into the evening time and at night. So the best time to see them is on a good sunny day, kind of in the morning hours. And I would suggest take all of the photos you want. There's a lot of really cool flowers and grasses out there. The refuge does not permit anyone to collect seed or pick flowers on the refuge. We want to keep that there for the wildlife. But take all the pictures you want. They're probably one of the greatest souvenirs to bring home with you. If you're looking to ID a plant with photos, do your best to try to get either the seed head or the flowers blooming, a picture of the leaves and a picture of the stem. That'll give you your best chance to ID the plant when you go home to look at them. And there will also be a map of the locations that I talk about here. A lot of these plants, especially the grasses, can be found throughout the entire refuge. But I picked a couple of good spots if you're looking to just see an example of some of the species there. And I'd say the other thing, especially with these fall flowers, do your best to enjoy them as much as you can now. The leaves are starting to change and all of that stuff. And of course, our next season is going to be winter. The grasses may persist a little bit, but the flowers will have to wait till springtime once winter hits. And here's the cool map. Ashley Biggs, the intern for the refuge, made this really awesome map with all the locations. And we will be posting this on Facebook so that you can reference it when you come and visit the refuge, maybe this weekend for Public Lands Day. So obviously, according to this picture, I will talk about 9 locations. And our first location will be on the next slide, and it is fall colors. We all know it is fall now, so it is the time to see those really pretty fall colors. And most of us like to go and see the trees, especially like the maples and the cottonwoods and stuff like that. And they do turn brilliant colors. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other plants that change color in the fall. So some of these pictures, if you look in your upper left, that is woodbine. And it's kind of like a little 5-leafed vine plant. It can grow up on things, but sometimes it just kind of spreads itself along the ground. And it turns that really brilliant deep red color. I think it can be a brighter red color too. So keep your eye out for that. And of course, in the middle upper is the notorious poison ivy. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but it actually turns really pretty colors in the fall. This particular one, you can see the 3 leaves there, kind of has that orangish yellow color. And orange and yellow are pretty popular colors for these to change. You can also get a reddish hue on these. And the great thing about them changing fall colors is that you can actually see them and avoid them a little easier if you step a tiny bit off the road to see a plant. And another really cool thing is some of the forbs also change color in the fall. So the bottom left picture there is a bright yellow milkweed plant, and the milkweed actually turns a very brilliant yellow color in the fall. Plus then that's when its seed heads pop open, so you can see they're very beautiful fluffy seed heads. The middle bottom picture is a picture of sumac. Sumac can turn anywhere from kind of like an orangish bright red color all the way down to like a deep purple. So it's kind of cool to see the differences depending on where you are on the wildlife drive or the refuge, the colors that the sumacs change to. And then the other plant I wanted to highlight a little bit, which is on your right, is hazelnut. There's a lot of hazelnut on the refuge, and right now it's kind of starting to turn a yellowy orange color, and it's very, very pretty in the fall. So this would be at stop 1, and stop 1 on the refuge is the welcome area. It has the Oak Savannah Trail on it, and you can just walk that and see a bunch of pretty colors. The other thing on the next slide that I want to definitely talk about is also at stop 1. And they happen to be the grasses. So everyone obviously knows that trees change color, but the grasses put on quite a show in the fall as well. In the foreground here in front of that line of trees are all native grasses. And you can see there's kind of some yellows, oranges, some browns, even some reddish colors in there. They turn rather brilliant colors in the fall, and it's very beautiful to see. So our next stop, and the first picture on our next stop is actually kind of a panorama picture, just to get an idea so you can see kind of the different colors that are going on right now. In the way background, you can see there's 2 really bright yellow trees, so the trees are starting to change. And then if you come a little closer in the picture, you can see that the red sumac is there, which is super pretty against the yellows and browns of the grasses. And then of course there's some goldenrods and asters and some prairie sage in the front there, adding some of their own colors. And I'll tell you where stop 2 is in just a second, because I want to pop over to one of the flowers here. and that would be the goldenrods. And the goldenrods are very, very pretty flowers. Obviously, that most of them are very bright yellow, and each arrangement of the flowers, if you look closely, has a bunch of very little flowers on it, and they're usually bright yellow with a yellow center. And these plants, I grouped them together because some of the goldenrod species can be hard to ID, and there's several different species. So the species on the refuge can be anywhere from like 1 to 5 feet tall. Typically I see them maybe in like the 2 to 4 foot range. So you'll probably have to look down for the most part if you're looking for the goldenrods. And obviously they started blooming kind of in the late summer and will bloom now until probably a hard frost. Some of them are starting to seed out and they get kind of a fuzzy seed head on them, which is super cool to see. So you can look for that if they're starting to get past their bloom. And a lot of the ones you'll see are kind of in drier areas. There are some wet goldenrods, but most of them like to be a little bit drier. So you'll see them on the uplands. And if you notice the picture on the bottom right, you'll see a bumblebee that is showy goldenrod. These are pollinator magnets. Butterflies, bees, all of those kinds of pollinators really love these flowers, and it's a super important late fall food source for them. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people are seeing these and going, oh my gosh, my allergies. I can assure you that goldenrod, unfortunately, gets a bad rep because of that, but it's not that plant that is giving you your allergies. Because these plants are insect pollinated, the pollen grains are really heavy, so they just fall to the ground. You'd almost have to like put pollen in your nose to be allergic to this one. Of course, there are some people who have pretty severe allergies and may be affected by this one, but the real culprit we're looking for is ragweed. That's the one that's going to give you your allergies. So this is a good one, a good flower to have around. And to see on the wildlife drive, this is in location 2 on the map. So this is going to be your first sharp corner on the wildlife drive when it goes to one way. And I have a little video here. Hopefully it will pop up. We'll see how it works here. And it's going to be on your left, you will see, and that's kind of where that panorama picture was too. So this one, if you want to pull to the side right at that sharp corner, there's an access road that cars I don't think are allowed on, but you can stop there and look to your left. And I don't see the video popping up, so there's a chance there's either a lag or I don't see it. So we'll just give it a second here, and we'll see. And this flower is kind of starting to go to seed. So if you look for some fluffiness, if you see a little bit of yellow and some fluffiness, you might be able to see that.
So Jenny, I did play the video.
Okay,
good. So we'll see. We'll move on to the next one and we'll see if you can see it in that time frame.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. Let's quick, I just want to point out some of the species here because I don't know all the species of goldenrod we have, but the upper left on here is stiff goldenrod. It kind of has a flatter flower arrangement on it. The one below it is gray goldenrod. That one kind of leans over with a kind of longer, narrower one. The one in the middle is showy goldenrod, which kind of has that more column-shaped flower arrangement for it. And then the one on the upper right, I'm not exactly sure on the species, but it's probably either Missouri goldenrod, Canada goldenrod, or like giant goldenrod or something. Some of the species look kind of similar, but it is a goldenrod. So let's go on to the next one, which is another grouping of plants. And those ones are the asters, which probably a lot of people have seen around. They tend to have smaller flowers, so anywhere from like dime size, maybe up to quarter size, depending on the species. And they're kind of organized into like the purple blue asters and the white asters. So that's kind of how I have it organized here, especially with the stops. And they obviously have very daisy-like flowers with kind of narrow petals. They can have quite a few petals on them. And they're pretty important pollinator plants in the fall as well. There aren't a million flowers that bloom in the fall, but asters certainly are one of them. And it looks like our screen sharing went off, but I will keep talking. So these plants, the asters, can get anywhere from 1, maybe even up to 7 feet tall. And those ones are going to be in the wetter conditions. The ones in the drier areas are going to be a little bit shorter. And so these ones are kind of found throughout the refuge. Some of them you can find in the shade. A lot of them prefer full sun. And I don't know all of the species of the asters. There happen to be 13 species of white asters on the refuge and 4 species of the blue-purple asters. So if you see these, just know they are asters, and you can take pictures of the leaves and the flowers for IDing if you are interested in doing that. So I know 2 of the species we have here. So the upper left is silky aster. And the leaves really are super silky, so if you want to feel those, it's kind of fun to do that and see the different textures. The one below it is sky blue aster, and it looks a little pale in this picture, but in the sun they look almost bright blue, which is super pretty to see. And I'm not sure about the asters. The one in the middle and the 2 on the right are some of the white asters we have, and I'm not sure exactly what species theirs are, but they are still really pretty asters to see. A good location for the blue-purple asters to see would be stop 2 and also stop 3. That's stop 3 is on the Prairie Trail, and there's asters throughout that trail, especially at the beginnings. And there you can kind of see the difference between like the deep purple of the aster, of the silky aster, and then the kind of brighter blue of the sky blue aster. And there's also a lot of goldenrods there too. There was a good stiff goldenrod one there that's kind of starting to go out to seed, but still had some flowers on it. So keep an eye on that. And the other location would be for the white asters, and that is stop 4. If you go past the blue stem pool sign and past the observation deck, there's a water control structure on the left, and there's quite a few white asters blooming along there. Oh, it looks like I can see this video. So there's the water control structure, and if you just walk just a little bit off the road, they're kind of in the ditch here, right where the plants get tall. And they're super pretty. They were pretty pretty deep in there, I would say, but they were a little taller than some of the other asters, so it might be easier to see those ones as well.
Jenny, I have a quick question about the blue asters, and I can show that video too, but how many species of blue asters do we either have on the refuge or maybe can be found in the area?
So I have heard there are 4 species, and I'm not sure what all of the species are. I know the silky aster and the sky blue aster are 2 of them. A good website if you're looking to see the different species of asters is minnesotawildflowers.info. If you type in aster in their search bar, all of the asters will pop up, and you can kind of see the different blue asters and the white ones as well. And many of those can be found on the refuge. Most of those asters are kind of found throughout the state. So that's a good spot, or a good place to look if you're looking for asters. Sorry, I don't know all of the species. The asters are one of those ones that it's like, dang, I got to take some time to learn them. So yeah, good question. That was a very good question.
So thanks, Carrie, for asking that. Do you want me to show the video for stop 3 or move on to the next one?
I think we can move on to the next one. Those ones will be pretty easy to find. So I think everyone will be good for that because the next flower is super cool and I'd like to talk about it. So this one is kind of a crowd favorite. Nodding beggar ticks. They are blooming all over the place mostly in the pool areas, especially the shallow pools and in the ditches. Because this plant, nodding beggar ticks, tends to like wet feet. Which means that it likes its roots to be very close or almost in the water. And obviously it has a very bright, beautiful yellow flower. I like to think that the petals are kind of short and squat compared to maybe some lookalikes. If there's some sunflowers blooming, they can sometimes be mistaken for beggar ticks. And it has kind of that darker yellow center. The flowers are maybe 1 to 2 inches wide. And a cool fact about this flower, well, I don't know if it's a cool fact, some people might not like it, but when the seeds form, they have like these little barbs on them that get stuck to animal fur and of course human clothing. So once the beggar ticks kind of start seeding out, maybe don't walk through it because you'll be picking seeds off of you for hours. Fortunately, I haven't gotten into this plant to know about the barbs, but I have some other stick type plants and stuff like that. So a good location, and we'll see if the video will play. If it doesn't, that's okay too. This would be stop 5. So there's a road intersection that goes across. And there you could kind of see the road intersection. That is mile marker 3 showing there. So if you go on the left side, just past the road that goes across the wildlife drive, right in the ditch there's quite a bit of nodding beggar ticks. And of course, those are the little, well, they're bigger than asters, but the little yellow flowers. And these plants can get anywhere from like half a foot up to maybe 3 feet tall. So they're not the tallest plants. The other thing to look for is the pools on either side here have a lot of nodding beggar ticks in them. So that's a good place to see them. And I saw them here or there in some of the shallower parts of the pool. So they're definitely good ones to see all around. So our next plant we will get into starts off our 4 what I call the big grasses of the fall. And that happens to be Indian grass, which is a very pretty grass. When it actually does have its little flowers, which are rather small, it can have a very pretty yellow appearance to the seed head, which is pretty distinctive to see. Right now, they're kind of starting to seed out. So you'll see they kind of turn a golden brown color on the seed heads at the top. These are very tall plants. I wouldn't call them big plants, but they're very tall. They can get up to 7 feet tall. The refuge right now, they're a couple feet shorter than that. The rains kind of didn't hit them at the right time. Our rain was kind of hit and miss this year. So they're a little shorter than maybe they could have been if we had more rains. But they're still pretty tall and very pretty. These guys you'll find all throughout the refuge. They're very tolerant of growing conditions. They'll tolerate some shade, they'll tolerate some water, drier conditions, that kind of thing. This is one of the dominant grasses in a tall grass prairie. And in the fall, they turn a very pretty kind of golden yellow brownish color. And these ones, the photos that I got here, they're kind of starting to turn. The stems are still a little green. So I would guess this weekend and into next week, they'll probably really get their pretty golden colors on them. And a good stop to see them, although they're found throughout, is at stop 6 on the wildlife drive. And this is at mile marker 4.5, and you'll see them on the right side of the drive. There's a pretty good extensive patch, and there's the mile marker 4.5. You can just look in here and hopefully we'll be able to see them. They kind of blow in the breeze. Sunday was really windy, so they were blowing really well in the breeze. There are some other grasses growing here too, but it's pretty easy to see which ones the Indian grass are. There's one of the ones that I grabbed since it was blowing all over and I wasn't sure if we'd be able to see it. But that is a good spot, but I've seen it all over on the wildlife drive and all over the refuge too on other trails. The next grass is also one of the taller grass species, and that happens to be switchgrass. And switchgrass has a super pretty seed head. It's kind of pyramid shaped, and it's very spread out and airy, and you can see almost like the individual seeds on it, which is super cool. This grass can get maybe 6 feet tall. It is a little shorter again on the refuge. I had a harder time finding this out and about, but I'll tell you in a second where there's a good spot to see it. This is actually a relatively important food source for the winter songbirds like chickadees or juncos, because the seeds tend to persist into the winter. It's also really good cover for birds because it tends to stay standing even throughout the snowpack. So it's a good place for them to hide from predators or just hang out outside of the wind in the winter time. It turns kind of a light yellow tan color in the fall. Sometimes it just goes brown, but it can have a very pretty yellow color. And because it kind of clumps together, sometimes. It's kind of dramatic on the scene when you drive by and you're like, oh, look, there's a clump of it, and there's another clump of it there. As far as a good location to see it, stop 7 is a good spot. There's a pretty thick clump of it next to the water control structure on the right side of the wildlife drive. If you go past the first Stickney pool sign, there's kind of a little pull off with an information sign there. It's right to the left of the water control structure. There's a pretty good patch of it, so that you can see it without mistaking it for another grass, although it's a pretty distinctive grass. The next one is my favorite grass species, and I doubt many people have favorite grasses, but this one is my favorite grass. It is big blue stem. Another name for this is turkey foot, because if you notice, its seed heads often have like 3, they can have more than 3, maybe up to 5 or 7 seed spikes on them, but they often have 3, which is where they get their name turkey foot, because I guess it resembles a turkey foot to some people, which is super cool. This is a very tall grass. It can get up over your head 7 feet. I would say it's probably maybe between 4 and 5 feet on the refuge right now. And obviously it can have kind of a purplish hue before it seeds out, especially the seed heads. And then once they start making seeds, it kind of turns to a golden yellow color, and then it gets more, I don't know if you can notice on the picture on the left, there's kind of some little hairs coming off of them. They get more hairs on them as the seeds start to mature. So that's can be a distinctive feature. They're not as fuzzy as the next grass we'll talk about in a second. And in the fall, this one can turn a beautiful reddish purple color. I'm guessing it has some sort of a blue hue to it, although I've seen very few with that, being that it's called blue stem. And a good spot to see it is spot 8 on the wildlife drive. And I don't have a video for it yet because there's actually little blue stem, which is the next plant we'll talk about in a second, is also located here. So I'll talk a little more about where we can find that one once we talk about our next super awesome grass, which happens to be little blue stem. Now, little blue stem is actually kind of considered a short grass species. I've seen it get maybe to 4 feet tall, but it's typically maybe between 1 and 3 feet tall. And that one kind of has a shorter spike on it. It doesn't have like 3 or 5 on each stem. It just shoots up several stems that have maybe some shorter ones that are maybe like 1 to 2 inches long. And when it starts seeding out, the seed heads get very fuzzy. So that's a pretty good distinctive characteristic of little blue stem. Let's see, what did I miss on here? Oh, yes. Okay, so a lot of people think that grasses are kind of not as important for maybe as a host plant, but grasses actually can be host plants to many different, say, butterfly or moth species caterpillars. The little blue stem has, if you've ever heard of a skipper, which is a small species of butterfly that kind of looks like a moth, this little blue stem is actually host to many of those caterpillar species. So it's very important for that stage of the life cycle. Obviously, the butterflies will feed on flowers, but the caterpillars will eat the grasses. And this one kind of turns a reddish brown color in the fall. Sometimes it can have a little bit of a purplish or blue hue, which is really cool to see. And okay, so a good spot to see big blue stem and little blue stem is at mile marker 5.5. So the little blue stem is going to be on your right on the road. There was the mile marker there. It's actually pretty thick in here, and there aren't too many other grass species right along the side, so it's pretty easy to see the little blue stem here. And obviously you'll have to look down a little bit because it is considered a short grass. But it has very pretty clumps and does blow around in the breeze like most grasses do. And then when we go across the road on your left, there's a pretty big stand of big blue stem. And that one maybe will be a little closer to eye level, so you might not have to bend down to see it as much. And like I said, big blue stem's my favorite. I do like little blue stem too. And then our last stop on the refuge, well, the wildlife drive, I should say, there are many stops on the refuge, happens to be another panorama view. And this is kind of cool because if you look kind of in the back right there, that is stop 2. that is the sharp corner that you take to look at the panorama. So this is kind of like a different angle of it. You're kind of looking at the back of what you would have seen at stop 2. So here you can kind of see there's grasses and stuff. The sumac kind of hits you first, and then you get a view of the grasses with the goldenrods and the asters in it. And another cool thing about this stop, if you notice all of the little white spots in this picture, those are milkweed seeds. So the pods are starting to open up and release the seeds. So it's kind of cool to see their little puffy seeds, because it's like a little brown seed with a huge tuft of hairs on the end of it. And that's very cool to see. And this stop is going to be like a couple 100 feet before you hit the two-way again. So just look on your left and you should see it coming up. If you miss it, you can always pull to the side so that cars can get around, and then just walk back on the road to see the good view. It's a good spot to maybe share a few breaths with nature before you head back off to your regular everyday life. And before we get to questions, Elena, I just wanted to do a quick shout out thank you to Robin and Mitch, who normally would have been running this in person, but they came out last week and helped me find where some of the flowers and the grasses were and good spots to highlight on the drive. So I think we can move over to questions, Elena. Hopefully we have a few. Oh, I think your sound is off. Possibly.
Okay, I clicked it, but it didn't work. Now
Okay.
I think it worked.
Darn Zoom.
Darn Zoom. Okay. So I think as of right now, we only have one question, and we might stump you. So if that is the case, I know. So get ready.
Okay.
Any idea how nodding beggar ticks got their name? It is a pretty unique name for a wildflower.
You know, I'm not sure how it got its name. I wonder if it's not something to do with, like, since they attach to your clothing, you know how ticks kind of get on you? I don't know. That would be interesting to know. That would be interesting to know. I am not sure. So I may have to look that up and get back to them. Yeah, that would be good to know.
Yeah. We'll learn along with you.
Exactly. Well, that's how I learn half my stuff. So
exactly. Good questions.
It is, yes, so, that is a very insightful question. I'm glad that one was posed, even though I don't know it.
So our next question comes in from Maggie. Okay. And are there any fall species that have yet to bloom? Or are we kind of seeing our current bloomers wane?
So I think at this point in the season, Maggie, we're kind of at the fall flowers that would bloom are blooming. Some of them are actually starting to go to seed right now, although some of the asters and some of the goldenrods will probably bloom until a hard frost. Okay. But I think a lot of them are kind of what you'll find is what you'll find. I think New England aster is probably one of the latest ones to bloom. I don't know how much of it we have on the refuge, but I've noticed that one has started to bloom kind of in the last week. So yeah, I think most of what you'll see is what we have. If you're looking for extra flowers, you'll have to wait till the spring. Darn, but that's how it works here. So.
And right at this current moment, we don't have any more questions coming in. So there's a plant Robin has a question. A plant along the drive that has clusters of white berries. Do you have any guesses as to what?
Oh, does she know where it was found on the refuge? Because there might be a few woodland species like white barberry, I think is one. There is also when poison ivy does have flowers, and when it goes to seed, it has really little white berries that almost look like teeny tiny pumpkins. Okay. Those may be starting to appear too. But I guess if she didn't notice the leaves, then it might not have been that. Trying to think if I remember seeing some plants with some white berries while I was out there. Yeah. I was kind of focused on flowers, so I might have missed them. But I can probably do a little bit of looking to see kind of some of the plants that are on the refuge and what might have some white berries on them.
So her guess was maybe white bayberry. Would she be on the right track with that?
It might be baneberry, but I'll
Baneberry.
look it up and see if there is a bayberry, because there's a lot of plants out there that have similar names. So, and sometimes common names can get mixed up. Sometimes there's two different plants that have the same common name, but that's okay. Yeah, it certainly could be that, especially if it was in kind of the wooded areas, because I think that's a woodland species that would have white berries right now.
Okay.
I think there is a white
Awesome.
version
Yes.
of red baneberry, and I don't remember what the differences are between the two, but that's just some of the stuff I've seen from other people. So, good question.
And then, I know we're working hard to stump you. So, so we have another question, and I can answer this one. It's from Lori, asking kind of about access to the refuge service roads. So this Saturday, we have our once a year opportunity to drive, to be able to have vehicle access to a handful of the refuge's service roads in celebration of National Public Lands Day. So gates that are normally locked to the service roads will be open from 10 a.m. And then they'll be relocked at 3 p.m. So you'd benefit from moving on with your day before 3 p.m. But in general, this time of year, from September 1st through February 28th, you're welcome to walk, hike, or bike the service roads. So you can park. Usually there's a small parking area right near the gate, and you can park there and then kind of hike in. A couple of things that we ask, if please don't block the gate just in case staff need access in and out. You're welcome to bring your pets, but we do ask that you keep them on a leash for wildlife's sake. And then if you want to bring your bike, you have to stay on the service roads themselves. Otherwise, for hiking, you're welcome to go off trail this time of year as well, to get off the beaten path. So lots of options, but this Saturday is that once a year opportunity to be able to drive back in there. And if you're curious about the map, I can post it in the comments here. You can also find the map of the service roads that will be open on the main timeline of the Friends Facebook page and on the events calendar page of the Refuge website. And if you want a paper copy, they are at Refuge headquarters in that message board outside. So I know a lot of information about service roads, but it's timely since it's coming up.
Well, yeah, that's the question of the day, of course, the service roads. So
yes,
and there should be flowers on them. Just saying, you'll probably find some of these flowers.
And I mean, how long do you think these flowers will be in bloom for?
So I think it varies on the species. There are some goldenrods, like I noticed the stiff goldenrod and the showy goldenrod were kind of starting to seed out now. So I would say if you probably get here within the next couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, you should be able to see quite a few of the flowers. I think a lot of the asters bloom until we get a hard frost, but I'm sure that depends on the species.
Okay.
The grasses, oftentimes they do persist into the winter, so you can still sometimes identify them when it gets into the winter, but the birds might eat them really fast and the seeds do fall off when the winds come in. So just keep that in mind. And then if that happens, then we just wait until spring for different flowers and grasses. So
that's the beauty of spring. I mean, things waking back up, and the early bloomers really steal the show because you get so excited with your first, seeing that fresh, even just green leaves again. We as Minnesotans, that's an exciting moment.
Yes, I have many random pictures on my phone of, oh my gosh, the plants are starting to come up and I don't even know what they are, but I don't care because it's green.
So we had a question following up on goldenrods and how they're pollinated. So the question comes in from Caitlin. Are stiff and showy goldenrods the ones that are not wind pollinated? So is it species specific or is it kind of goldenrods as a whole?
So the whole being allergic or not is actually goldenrods as a whole. Generally speaking, if you're looking at flowers, if they're showy and bright, they're going to be pollinated by insects.
Okay.
So all the goldenrods are pollinated by insects. So that means like mostly bees and butterflies. I'm sure there's some moths and some flies that also pollinate them. But those ones are going to have the heavy pollen grains that would fall to the ground. They're kind of hard to be allergic to. I'm not saying that you can't be, because some people have very interesting allergies, but usually it's the ragweed, because that one's wind pollinated, not insect pollinated, which means it's harder to see because it doesn't need
Okay.
pretty flowers. It just needs flowers enough to be able to send pollen out and collect pollen in to make more ragweed, which is always a great thing for people.
And they just happen to, you know, kind of bloom at the same time. So that's what unfortunately gives goldenrod its bad rap, because it is bright and showy. And so you
Yes.
start sneezing, and it's the time of year when you see a lot of yellow out and about, and the first thought is, dang that goldenrod.
Yep. And I will also add, grasses are also wind pollinated, and some people do have allergies to grasses too.
Oh, yeah.
So the good thing is most of the grass is starting to seed out now, so there isn't as much grass pollen.
Okay.
And I would assume the ragweed is getting towards its end, although I know sometimes it can stay until there's a hard frost.
Okay.
But so if you want to get mad at something, first get mad at ragweed, and then maybe get a little mad at the grasses. But it's not their fault. It's what they do. They did it so that they'd make more plants, not so that you would sneeze. So
I mean, everything's got to live, right?
exactly. Yep.
So we have a question from Corinne kind of about refuge habitat management. And so I'll take this one. I won't have a great answer, but I'll give it a stab. So question about prescribed fires and whether or not we have burns planned for this spring. And especially, you know, thinking about the wild lupin that bloomed so spectacularly in June of 2019 following the spring burn, just, you know, a couple months prior, really kicking off that just blanket of purple. So for this next spring, we are planning to do prescribed fire on the refuge. And I'm not exactly sure of the priority units on the refuge that to see fire. We try to rotate areas of the refuge that see this management method. So they would ideally get fire about every 3 to 5 years to help with that, encourage that diversity. And so optimally, we would see fire this spring. But if current conditions persist with the ongoing pandemic, it might not be feasible. So it's just kind of too early to tell with all this uncertainty, but we're fingers crossed. So if you guys all cross your fingers and your limbs, hopefully we'll get there.
Yes, and burns are good, so keep your fingers crossed. We want to be able to manage the refuge properly. So
yeah, I mean, all of the grasses, all the flowers that we've talked about in this program and previous programs, you know, the prairie plants, every year what lives above the ground dies, and the next year it starts fresh from their root system. And so, you know, after 5 years, you can have quite a layer of really flammable plant material.
yeah.
So it helps on multiple levels, and to give some of those prettier wildflowers the chance to see the sun again, you know, by opening up growing windows, by exposing kind of the whole soil surface. With their extensive root systems, it's amazing to see how fast they pop back up.
Yes.
Okay. And we had a question about recording. Someone unfortunately also had some technical issues, just like we had some technical issues throughout the program, and they were not available to join us live. I will add that to the comments, but just a reminder that this will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch it later. So if you want to rewatch some of those videos for locations of the flowers, otherwise the map of the locations that Jenny highlighted will be posted in the comment section here and on the main timeline of the Facebook Friends Facebook page later today. So you'll have that for reference, and you'll probably want to get out sooner rather than later so you can see more of it in bloom, because I think every couple days more and more is going to seed.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the seeds can be fun to see too, but it makes it a little more difficult to ID sometimes, especially maybe for amateur people. So it's good to see them when they're in flower, because then you can see the plant, and then it's easier to tell what it is when it's seeding. So
less of a challenge, gives you a little bit better idea.
Exactly.
Okay, well, at this point, we don't have any other questions coming in. So I think we're ready to wrap up. I'm going to share one more slide and talk about what's coming up next week. So let me see if I can get to it. So not next week, sorry, Saturday.
I was going to say 2 days from now.
2 days from now. Saturday is National Public Lands Day, and typically we would have we would be able to celebrate in person at Wildlife Festival. This year, unfortunately, that's not an option, and so we will miss seeing all of you. But instead, we're taking our live animal program virtual, so you can still enjoy that piece of the festival. So on Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m., we will be live, and Osprey Wilds Environmental Learning Center will give a live animal presentation. They will have 2 raptors and a snake, including this kestrel you see, ready to celebrate with us. So tune in on Saturday at 1. And get out on the refuge this weekend as well. Take advantage of being able to drive the service roads on Saturday. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions that you think of afterwards, feel free to pop them into the comments. I have one last question we will take care of right now. And I don't know that we have a good answer. We've had very good questions today. Any idea when fall colors will peak?
Oh, that is a very good question. I know the Minnesota DNR always has a map that they update. I don't know if it's every couple days or what, that tells you what's peak and what's not. I think the last time I looked at that was like yesterday or the day before, and Sherburne County was at like 10 to 25%, I think. If you want to see, the North Shore looks like it's peaking now. So if you end up going there 2 weeks from now, there may not be any more leaves on the trees up there. But because we're a little further south, I would say we have a little more time. But I know that map is updated pretty regularly on the DNR website, if you're looking to come out here and see when the fall colors peak. And I think those fall colors, they tend to look at just the trees. So the grass fall colors might be a little different. So I'm not sure about that, but usually they just go based off of what the trees look like. So
yeah, and so you have a little bit more time in this neck of the woods, probably in the next couple of, maybe mid-October or so, we could see peak. And a lot of it just is going to depend on what the weather that we have in the upcoming weeks. If we trend warm, it might last longer. If we see some frost or colder temps, it tells the grasses, flowers, and trees that it's time to settle in.
Exactly.
Okay, well, with that, we will let you go. Have a wonderful day today, and we hope you tune in on Saturday.
See you then. Thanks for joining.